everybody. Welcome to the live chat for Oathbringer. I am joined by Margaret. She has a TikTok that I linked down below. Again, I say this every time. I actually don't really know how well that link works because I've never tried to link TikTok in my YouTube videos, but it is there, so you can at least find it if you want to type in the actual thing. So it exists.
It is there.
Yes. I tried my best.
No, the TikTok links are sometimes weird.
Yeah. I feel like TikTok's really weird about links and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah.
They want you to find it. They want you to find it on the For You page or not at all.
Yeah, they really don't want you going anywhere else. So
No.
they don't make that helpful.
Do not leave.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're going to be talking about Oathbringer by Brandon Sanderson. This is the third full-length novel in the Stormlight Archive series. So this is a spoiler chat. It's almost impossible to talk about the third book in a series like this, spoiler-free. So we're going to be doing spoilers from the beginning. Just a heads up to everybody. Okay. I want to kind of start on like broad feelings about this book, because I feel like when I was first getting into the Stormlight Archive, the Oathbringer was quite a polarizing book for a lot of people. And a lot of people were like, this was a letdown. It wasn't as good. It has middle book syndrome. How do you feel about Oathbringer?
So I think on my first read, I would agree with that. Like, I think that it felt very long. The first time I read it, I wasn't super invested in Dalinar as a character at that point. And so it felt I was less invested in it than Words of Radiance. But on reread, I did really enjoy it. And I think it's just because in rereading the series, I'm more invested in all of the characters already. And I have a better sense of what's going on and like why things are important. Because I think in Stormlight, so much of it is trust the process. Like, you have to know that all of these little intricacies are going to have an impact. And so in rereading it, you already know what the purpose is.
Yeah.
And I think that just makes it easier to read. So I did enjoy it much more on reread.
I actually feel like that's a really common thing for Brandon Sanderson books, is he is so good at putting little hints and Easter eggs and little things throughout the book that you don't really recognize as you're reading. And then when you reread it, you pick up on so much more. Like, even I feel like when you finish a book, you're like, oh, looking back, you see the things, but you don't see all of them. He's very good at putting them in there and making them so subtle that
100%.
you really don't even remember it, because it was such a passing thing that it didn't even register.
It feels like he plants seeds for so many different things.
Yes.
And it's only like 2 or 3 will actually, so it's really hard I find it really hard to predict his books because he's like I feel like intentionally trying to like plant the seeds for other things. So you don't really know which one's going to take off.
Definitely.
I love that.
I actually feel like that's one of his biggest skills, is his ability to plant little hints throughout, but not make it super obvious, but also not make it so out of the blue that you're like, what the heck? That was weird. You know, like, he does so well at it. It's one of the best I've ever seen in any author.
Totally agree. Because it never feels like it's not earned. Like, when you reflect on it, you're like, oh my God, that thing happened. That makes sense now. But it's never so obvious that because sometimes you read a book and a character's introduced, or like, it's like the classic murder mystery. Like, a character enters the room and you're like, obviously they did it. Like they did it. It's immediately, so he's very good at that.
Yeah. Yeah. Because even the ones that you like, he makes you not like I'll say, this is like just kind of jumping into like Amaram, right? We don't like him from the beginning, but I feel like he's kind of making him out to be like, actually, he is more honorable. He is these things, right? But then you only see that one episode of him not being. Yeah. And so it's like, it does. I feel like at least for me, maybe this is everyone else, like, it's not enough to really make you be like, oh, he's actually a horrible person, right? Yeah. You're like, oh, it was a one-off. He was doing it for the better right type thing. Yeah. Wherein then you're like, whoa, actually.
Yes. Like, yeah, no, I would agree. I think that he's like a very unique character, because when you're first introduced to him, it's as a villainous character, because he's like the antagonist Kaladin in the first book. And so but then it kind of brings that into question when Dalinar in book 2 like reveres him so much, and he's got such good kind of judge of character. And so I like that confuses you, and like, was it just a moment? Is he a bad person? I love that.
I actually will say, since we're jumping onto Dalinar, let's just jump onto Dalinar, because he really is like the character of this book, right? This is very, very much Dalinar's book. I think Dalinar is actually a horrendous judge of character. Like, he is, like, we love him and his character, so we want to think that he's a good judge of character, but I think he's actually so bad. Like, he wants to believe what people say, and he wants to believe the good in people, and he lets himself be taken advantage of. He lets himself get into these situations, and he'll, like, Gavilar, right? We're finding out
he's
more about Gavilar.
All of his faults.
And he puts Gavilar up on this pedestal. And we're like, how are you so blind? You're his brother. You were right with him the whole time.
I feel like he has little sibling syndrome, is what I call it. As a little sibling, it is, you like just put your older sibling on such a pedestal, they can do no wrong.
Yep.
And he feels that bad with Gavilar.
Dalinar, come on, buddy.
That's fair. That's fair. Because I do like that though, that I feel like Oathbringer humanizes him a little bit and shows his faults and like how he has screwed up so many times in his life, and then he has this redemption arc. I really love that.
I absolutely love Dalinar as a character. He was my favorite character from book 1.
I was just gonna say that I feel like that's unique.
I agree. I feel like when I said that, when I first read Way of Kings, I was like, Dalinar's my favorite character. Like, did you read Kaladin? I'm like, yes, but I love Dalinar.
Yeah.
And I find it so intriguing the way some authors will do this, where they'll make you just love this character and who they are. And then you'll get information about their backstory, and it's actually horrible. Like, I mean, I still love Dalinar. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's actually really bad.
Yes. It is, for sure. Blackthorn did some bad things.
You're just like, ooh.
Still love you, but ooh.
Like, please.
I know. Maybe chill out a little bit there for a second. Yeah, I would agree. I definitely did not. I've said before, like Way of Kings, I feel like I didn't really connect with any of the characters on my first read, which I think was my disconnect, and it was more so Words of Radiance that I like got it.
Words of Radiance was very emotional.
Yeah.
I think it was so well done in that read. But I honestly feel like Oathbringer was super emotional for me too, because Dalinar has been my favorite character from the beginning. So it was just like such an emotional roller coaster to kind of go through all these changes of Dalinar. And I was talking with my husband about Dalinar's personality last night, and how he goes through like essentially 3 giant personality shifts throughout his life. Like, I mean, little things, I'm sure more in there, but he has like his Blackthorn, right, where he is just like kind of like out to kill. Like, he doesn't really care that much about people and morality quite as much, right? You know, like he has some there, but it's a lot more in the darker gray area than like present.
Contract-minded. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have like drunk Dalinar, who is like pretty much worthless. And that's kind of mean to say, but you know, like he does. Like,
he's checked out from everything, 100%.
Yeah. And then you have super moral Dalinar, who's following the codes and like very honorable. And it seems like huge personality shifts for him. And I was trying to figure out the word for it.
He evolves.
Yeah, like, because it's not just like little switches here and there. It's like huge. Like, I'm changing who I am as a person.
It's true. And I feel like I do like that Brandon Sanderson shows that characters can evolve or devolve in Dalinar's case, when he kind of devolved into being a drunk. But I'm trying to think if he's done that with other characters. Like mostly they do stay pretty rooted in who they are. But I guess it's also in flashbacks. Like, we only know of those differences because of the flashbacks, where in his other books we don't get those flashbacks. So like Vin evolves. I don't know, it's tough. This is off topic kind of, but I was watching an interview the other day with Brian, like the guy. Did you ever watch Breaking Bad?
I watched the first episode.
Oh, okay. So Breaking Bad, like he was basically saying that like within that show, something that was really, really unique about it is that the character changes drastically throughout the course of the series. And it had like never been done before. And I never really thought about that. But characters do stay very consistent. And I feel like in most books, characters stay very consistent with who they are throughout entire series. And so I do kind of love that Dalinar showing that characters can evolve and people can have these different like eras of their life and kind of come out the other side of that, whether positive or negative.
Yeah, I agree. Because I think like a lot of characters will show like character development, right? Because you see a lot of changes in Shallan, you see a lot of changes in Kaladin as these are going, but I feel like fundamentally their like beliefs, morals, those types of things stay relatively the same, right? And they change a little slower, whereas Dalinar seems like they change so drastically.
Like his morals change, you're right.
Like especially his change from like going to this new moral type person, right? Like that's a really, really big shift to make, particularly when you are so used to doing it one way and you are a leader of a group, right? Like it'd be hard to change your entire leadership style as like the High Prince.
Yeah, and it's interesting too because everyone calls him on it, which I do like. Like I like that he kind of shows the backlash of that because everyone wants the Blackthorn back, and this kind of these strict adherence to the codes is so outlandish to them because he's never done it before. I do kind of like that. But it's interesting, and it makes it so jarring, the flashback scenes, because to that point we'd only really heard of the Blackthorn. We only knew Dalinar as this like very moral, straight edge character, and so to see him before was fascinating.
I feel like he has a very extreme personality where he goes to the extremes, whatever direction he's going.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. 100%.
Which like I love him. Like I just like I'm in love with Dalinar. I'm sorry. Like he's my
that man commits, to whatever bit he's in.
Yep. I'm just like, okay, here we go. Whatever you are.
We'll ride this out. All good.
Other character work in this book. I honestly feel, and I felt like it was kind of hard to talk about Shallan in Words of Radiance, having read the books moving forward. So kind of talking about it now. I feel like I didn't love her in the first one, but I didn't hate her. Like I thought the situation she was in was intriguing, and she was interesting. She was fine for me in the first one. Agreed. I loved her in the second one. Like I just loved Shallan in the second one. But in this one, I've gone back to not liking her again, and I actually dislike her now.
Agreed. Yeah. Hard agree. She's so irritating. But I did the same evolution. Thought she was like meh. Book 1 didn't feel super strongly about any of the characters, whatever. Book 2, absolutely adore her. Book 3 started to dislike her. And then I think we talked about it in the Words of Radiance live show, where in rereading Words of Radiance, I thought I would get that back, and I didn't. I was just irritated with her the whole reread because of Oathbringer.
Because hers is so emotional in Words of Radiance. Like I was crying at times. I was like, this poor girl.
And then none of it hit on the reread, because I was just like, no, you're so
it's like, I know where you're going.
I know you're going to bother me, so you're not sucking me back in.
Nope, not happening.
No, she's so Oathbringer. Oh my gosh. Sorry, Rhythm of War, I feel like she gets a little bit better. She irritates me less. This is the book where she irritates me the most, for sure. Because I feel like I don't want to spoil Rhythm of War, but I feel like she gets a little bit better there, but...
And I'm really sad about it, because I feel that what Shallan is doing in Oathbringer with like the Ghost Bloods and stuff, and like, I actually think it's fascinating. Like what's actually happening in the plot around Shallan is super, super interesting. And like, I would be so invested if it was a character that I was enjoying following.
Yeah. 100% agree. Like I want to enjoy those things. I want to hear more about those. But every time I would go to her chapter, I'd be like, ugh. Yeah. Couldn't take it. I just feel like it's I understand. I like that Brandon Sanderson focuses so much on mental health and different, like various mental illnesses, but I find hers just, I don't know, too much. Like, and it's not because of that, but I just feel like all of her different personalities.
Yeah.
I just don't like some of her personalities, and I'm not interested. Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. I know. I really agree with you. Like, I can't pinpoint what exactly it is that bugs me so much, but it really does.
I know. I think I don't like Vale. I think that might be part of it. Like, I really dislike the persona of Vale. And
I
Radiant?
dislike Vale, but I also dislike Shallan's relationship with Vale.
Yes, agreed. And like this, yes, I don't like Vale, and I don't like how because it seems like they converse almost, like they
Yeah.
see back and forth between them. And I would agree with that. Like her, I don't know, yeah, like her response to Vale or her like reliance, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I think it's the Vale piece because Radiance is relatively like innocuous.
Right. And that was like me.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. And it's so disappointing because honestly, I feel like her area of this book is so fascinating.
I know. Agreed. I'm like trying because I'm now reading Rhythm of War, and I'm trying to like not be annoyed with her. I'm like, just enjoy these chapters.
I know, and I'm so sad because I really like Adolin, and I feel like his character development is so great, and he's just like sweet Adolin now. Like I love him.
I know,
and I'm like, can we just like a little bit?
You have your own POVs. Like, let's get more chapters of you.
Yeah,
less of this.
Exactly. Like you can still be together. I'm fine with that. I've accepted that, but can we just like not see you together?
Yeah, let's just split more often.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%.
And I do think that people use Shallan as an example when they're talking about how Brandon Sanderson writes female characters and like he doesn't write them well. I don't like this. And I actually really disagree with that because I find that I love the majority of his female characters and she's a minority for me.
And it's not because she's female. She's just an irritating character.
Yeah, I just don't
like that's the distinction I feel like people don't make. Like she's just a super, super annoying character. It wouldn't matter if she were male, female, like it would not matter.
Yeah.
What her what she like, what gender she was, whatever. She's just irritating.
Yeah. Because oh my gosh, one of the characters of his that I dislike the most was from did you read the Wizard's Handbook to Surviving Medieval England?
I've heard such bad things. I didn't.
The main character of that one, I wanted to just like.
That's what I heard. Was he like that? Is he just super annoying?
He is so irritating to me. Like I could not stand him. He was so annoying to me.
Is he like Wade? I've heard people compare him to Wade, Wax and Wayne. Wayne.
Yes, I can. So the humor in that book is very similar to Wayne's humor. Okay. But I like Wayne. I like Wayne so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Like Wayne is bizarre and like unique and weird, but I don't know. Like it works for me in that character, and it does not work in that book.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, I have it. Like I have the beautiful special edition.
I do too.
But I just heard such bad things right out the gate. And I also, to be completely honest, like I just love the Cosmere. Like I don't love that it's not in the like I'm not super interested in reading a standalone.
Yeah. So. And honestly, like you don't have to read it. Like if you get to it someday, great. If not, whatever.
I feel like that was Cytonic. Is it Cytonic? The fourth book in the Skyward series. Defiant. I've not read. I've read the first 3. I didn't read Defiant because I just feel like lack of investment in the non-Cosmere books.
I liked it. I liked his Skyward series and I thought it was good, but I agree with you. I feel so much more investment in his Cosmere books.
I really thought Skyward was going to be part of the Cosmere. That was my
unhinged theory.
I was convinced. I was convinced that it was part of the Cosmere, and I thought that was going to come out in Defiant, and then I heard it didn't, and I was like, okay, well, then I don't want to read it. I
could have seen it. I definitely could see it. Could have seen it doing
similar-ish. Like there's this element of kind of like taking in, which I feel like is very similar to like the investiture of it all.
Well, and there's a lot of connection to other worlds within it too.
Exactly. I thought for sure that they were going to pop up in Roshar or like the Scadrial or whatever. But no. Sad.
No. Other than that, I feel like character-wise, Renarin was one that just I loved him in Words of Radiance. Oh my gosh, when he came out in the duel and I was like almost crying. I'm like, no, baby Renarin, you're gonna die, right? But like I still feel that way. Like he is just little Renarin and he is so cute and so sweet. And I'm just like, what? Wait, we've already found out. Yeah, like why you give him the sad friend?
I remember being very confused by that the first time around. So I was rereading that. I found, because I was like, wait, I don't understand. Is he bad now? But yeah, I found that whole thing is very, I know, poor Renarin.
I think I'm still kind of, it's hard for me to completely understand it.
Yeah.
Still. At this point.
Yeah. I feel like it's all that piece is the more you get into Stormlight, the more confusing it gets for sure.
I know. This book especially, this one really expands the world so much.
Yes.
Like we're not living on the Shattered Plains as much as we were before.
Mhm,
Like we have
mhm,
moved around so much. We're getting extra POVs. Like it's
mhm.
really expanded in this book.
Yeah,
Definitely. And
100%.
the world building, the lore, like we seriously are getting so much. And I think for that, it felt like the pacing was so fast for me. Like the plot and
Mhm.
the world was just going. Like you were
Okay.
constantly getting more information, more things, figuring things out throughout the
Mhm.
entire book. So for me, like I didn't feel like it was long. I didn't feel like it drug. It was so like it was just fun the whole time for me.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like the Way of Kings is the only one that's to me is slow.
Yeah.
The other ones I find, but even on reread, I didn't find The Way of Kings slow. It was mostly just on first pass, but the other ones I do definitely find like things kick off so quickly relatively to like the size.
Yeah. I agree. So I also, okay, speaking of the multiple POVs, I think that I love it when authors can take multi POVs and then kind of start pulling them all together to
Mhm.
show how they all connect so well. I absolutely love that in books,
Same.
but I feel like there was a little too many POVs in this one.
Ooh, okay.
And I know that's an unpopular opinion because know that so many people love having the like 20 POVs
Mhm.
in their fantasy books. And while I like what happens when you do that and how they all come together, I absolutely love that. I don't know. I like my POVs to be a little bit more limited.
So who do you feel like was like put you over the edge in terms of POVs? Like which ones?
Maybe too many of the Bridge Four. Like I love the
Mhm.
characters, but I don't know. I like
'Cause they kinda group it all under that, like, bridge 4, yeah.
yeah, like I didn't need to follow all of them. And I didn't dislike any of their POVs actually. It wasn't that I was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, now I'm back with this." Like now I'm
Yeah,
back with Teft or whatever,
yeah.
I actually enjoyed reading them. I just feel like I like my POVs to be a little bit more limited because I get a lot more character attachment and
Mhm.
I want to be
True.
with the characters that I'm really attached to.
Yeah, I feel like he had to do it because, like, Kaladin was off so frequently to, like, get what was going on there. He
Yeah.
had to, like, develop the bridge 4. I didn't mind it too much. I do think I'm in the camp of, like, I'm usually pretty good with having a lot of POVs. Because I know a lot of people struggle with the number of POVs in Faithful and the Fallen. I get that comment all the
It
time.
does have a lot.
It does have a lot, but I didn't really notice it, I guess, when I read it, and he, like, changes the POVs with each book, so maybe I'm just I don't know, that I don't normally, I don't even, like, normally notice. Though I feel like I didn't mind it. I didn't really mind it a ton. I think any time away from Shalon, I was like, "I'll take it."
I do, yeah. I do think that she was very prominent in this book. It was
Yeah,
like Dalinar and Shallan.
yes,
And
I feel like
while
that.
Dalinar is my favorite, in this one, Shallan was my least favorite. So I'm just like,
Yeah.
can we maybe like have Dalinar and Adolin be our main ones? Or even like I
Mhm.
know Kaladin's off, but can we still make it be like, come on.
And we know sorry, I think we've talked about this already. The
Yeah.
5th book primary POV, we know, right? And it's not Adolin.
Isn't it Zeth?
Yeah, I think it's Seth. Yeah. Okay, I think so too. I don't know
Yeah,
if
I'm
that's a
pretty
spoiler.
sure. Obviously I could be wrong, but
I know, because I feel like that's I haven't do you didn't listen to the prologue either, right? That he
I
released?
haven't. I'm gonna do it after I reread.
Rhythm of War?
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
still have
haven't
Dawn
listened.
Shard and then Rhythm of War.
Yeah, I like Dawn Chart. I like Dawn Chart way more than,
Edge Dancer.
ugh, can't stand Lift. I
I
didn't know
know.
how popular. I cannot stand
I
her.
know. I feel like that's actually she's such a polarizing character though, I think
Cool,
is the
yes,
thing.
that's a good
There
word
are
choice,
so many
yes.
people that absolutely love her, but there are so many people who really can't stand her too. Like very common. Yeah. No, I agree. I don't love Lift. I feel like though I don't mind her that much. Like she's fine. She's just like there.
Yeah, fair. Like, you don't
Like
feel strongly about her. So you're
yeah.
probably in the minority then, that you don't have a polarizing opinion.
Probably actually, because I'm just like, it's Lift.
Whatever.
It's fine. Like
Like,
I don't
whatever.
I fine. But yeah, I agree. I think Dawn Chart is it's so packed too. Like honestly, I feel like
How much happens, yeah.
Oathbringer Dawnshard, Rhythm of War are just like
action pack 100%, so much information. I remember, because I think the first time I read it, I was like pretty exhausted by Oathbringer. That reading Dawnshard was like, I loved it so much because it was like a more palatable, it was still this universe that I love, but it was so much easier and it was so much shorter. And I think that's why it's like cemented in my brain as like such an excellent novella.
I think a lot of the reason that, because Dawnshard gives us so much information and it actually teaches us so much about like the lore and stuff of the world. But I think a lot of the reason it was easier for me, at least, sorry, we're talking about the wrong book. Sorry, guys.
Sorry.
But some of the reason that I think it was so much easier for me is because Oathbringer, like you said, it has so much expansion.
Yeah.
Right? Like you have to learn so much about, okay, this people, this land, this capital, these politics, the economics, like all these things, right? You're really learning it. Whereas Dawnshard, I feel like you're learning a lot about like the world, the history of the world and its connections to Cosmere versus like having to remember all of these details to be able to learn about the world.
I agree. It feels like more self-contained a little bit. Like you're learning so much, but it's all within this versus having to like build upon other things. Yeah.
Yeah. You don't have to remember quite as much in order to understand what, like who's what or where they're going type thing.
100%. This, again, we're going to be talking about the wrong book, but just kind of is that, because I know a lot of people, I didn't realize it was such an unpopular opinion that Rhythm of War is actually my favorite. But do you think people dislike it because there's so much in Navani's point of view about like this, do you think that's what it is?
About like the science and the side of it. Yeah, I do agree, because have you read the Dandelion Dynasty too and loved it, right? Yes. Sorry. Because it also has a lot of that. And I've heard a lot of people don't like that aspect of it either.
Oh gosh, yeah. It's so, you just kind of glaze over though. Like just like take what you need from that and move along.
Take enough to understand, but not enough that you could recreate it. You know, like
you don't have to build it. There's no quiz. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it. You don't have to know how to make it.
Yes, exactly. Oh my gosh, yeah.
Ken Liu's bad for that. He loves to explain everything, the inner workings of every single. You finished the series, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He loves that.
Oh yeah. Veiled Throne. Are you kidding me?
Veiled Throne, like I'll give that to the haters. Veiled Throne.
Yeah, I was like, okay, you went a little overboard on this one. I'll give you
the kitchen things. Now we're on the wrong series, not even on the wrong. But the kitchen sequence.
We need to just have a time where we can just talk about whatever.
I know, we need to have a non-Stormlight related live show.
Like tangent as we wish.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yeah, the kitchen. It's too much. It ended up being important in Speaking Bones, which we can now say, but not that important.
Yeah, I was like, not important enough to warrant a whole book.
No.
Come on.
No. Come on, sir.
Oh, gosh. Okay. Oathbringer.
Right. Yes.
I feel like Oathbringer has a fairly dark undertone compared to his other books, which is interesting because he always has pretty like intense things happening in his world, like wars and death and like mistreatment of people, right? Like there's very terrible things happening, but I don't know, maybe it's just me and my feeling it, but I felt like Oathbringer was just a little bit darker feel to it. Like you just felt like you were in a darker place within the world and within the characters than I felt in pretty much any other book that I've read by Brandon Sanderson.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think because often when there's like that darkness or moments of pockets of darkness in his other books, it's almost always swiftly followed like by a moment of triumph or whatever. Like he puts you down so he can just kind of build you back up. But I think that there's pieces of Oathbringer where it's not really redeemable and it's not meant to be redeemable. Like everything that happens with his wife, like the intention is not for there to be like a silver lining to that. Yeah. Whereas I think a lot of other times when it's dark, there's a silver lining or it's like for character development or whatever. This one just feels like a horrible thing that happened. And that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. Because I mean, even with all the stuff that happened with Shallan, right? Some of those things were horribly dark, right? But I think that you're right. Like it pulled through like her hope, her using her humor, her love for her brothers, her trying to like be better for her family was like the undertone of it. Whereas with Dalinar, like he essentially just massacred this town and his wife in one go. And there was no, like, there was nothing else to it, right? Like, he was just like, I'm gonna win, and he did. Like, he did win, but you're like, no, like, there's no way you can morally twist that.
Yeah.
Like,
do you think he did that with the intention of, because people, like myself included, can gloss over a lot of really horrible things that characters do? Do you think he was trying to have something like that was like so deplorable that you had to like acknowledge that he was a bad person? Not even that, I'm like, he's a bad person.
I really think part of it was him wanting you to recognize that
he had a dark past.
This person who you have seen as like the best of the light eyes, the best of the nobility, he cares so much about people, actually has done horrible things. So it's like, so maybe don't write people off because of those horrible things. Like, hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Like, you don't forget about it. You don't not hold them accountable, but they can actually still become different people. Like, people can change.
Yes. Yeah, and I think it's very interesting because he's really not given him a redemption there.
Dalinar is my favorite character. Mine too.
Okay, is this your first read? Is he are you the same as Stephanie? Like, he was your favorite character from book 1?
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
I am ride or die for Dalinar. I honestly, I mean, I know Rhythm of War is coming, but like, I am like, is he gonna try to make me hate Dalinar? Like, is he gonna really try? Because it's so far hasn't worked. So
you could not make me hate him.
I don't think he can. Like, I can't even think of what he would have to have Dalinar do to make me hate. Like, I'm sorry,
can't be done. No, and I feel like the intention isn't to make you hate him, but I agree with you that it's meant to be like, you have to, don't put this person on a pedestal. Like, they have done deplorable things. And I think that like juxtaposition is really interesting. I feel like that's the intention.
And I think it kind of shows that doing the good doesn't negate the bad, right? Like, you're not making up for what you did. Like, you can't. Those people are dead. Like, you can never bring them back. But you can live your life well now, right? But it's not going to erase the past.
No, I would agree with that.
I'm on my reread and he's still my favorite. Woohoo! Oh, I'm actually so happy because I don't think I've ever met or talked to another person who Dalinar is their favorite throughout all the books. Yeah. Like, I've had some who love him in this one or who really loved him in like Words of Rage. Like, I've never had someone who loved him like beginning to end.
Yeah, I'm in the camp of love him in the later books, but he didn't stand out to me in the book 1 for sure.
How do you feel about him and Navani? Don't know how I feel.
Hashtag tell her to nothing.
Oh man, that's gonna start some deep
the amount of the like mental arithmetics we can go to justify the actions of our favorite characters. Like, I'm
right there. Imagine you posted a TikTok that was just like hashtag Downer did nothing wrong and like nothing else. The comments that you would get on that.
I know. Hashtag Hilo did nothing wrong. Hashtag Kala did nothing wrong. Dalinar did nothing wrong.
Oh my god. Oh my gosh, what's her name?
Gia.
Hashtag
Gia did nothing wrong.
Dang. I will say Gia is one of the most intriguing characters I've ever read in literature. Like, she's phenomenal. And I am on her. I am like Team Gia.
Yeah.
Recognizing that she also is kind of a terrible person.
Oh my gosh, I like heavy on the villain question mark. Like, I don't the whole time still
love her.
I'm like, I'm fascinating. She's one of my favorite characters I've read. And
we're gonna have a chat about.
I know we need to have a Dandelion
Dynasty series and like do like chats about it because
please, because I need to talk about Dandelion Dynasty still. I'm still brimming from that ending, but I love Gia. Oh my god, what a character. Okay, anyways, hashtag Gia did nothing wrong ever. Moving on. What was the question? I feel like there was a question.
We were talking about something.
We got distracted. Oh, Navani and Dalinar. Okay, yeah. I'm team Navani. I like them, and I don't think it's weird that she's married her like brother. Like, I know they like to say that, but I think they're really cute, and I really, really like Navani as a character. And I think that's why I'm so drawn to Rhythm of War. Like, I really am drawn to characters that are intelligent and not necessarily strong, because I just feel like I've read that archetype of like the stabby stab, strong female so many times. Like, I really do love to read those that are just so much smarter than everyone else.
Like
And
Yasna.
like
Girl's a
Yasna,
boss.
100%. Like I just love that. I think that's another series, but like the Empire trilogy by Raymond D. Feist and Janie Wirtz. She's also, oh, you'd love it. The main character, Mara of the Akoma, love her. She's like she's not strong, but she's so much smarter than everybody else. And I just love that archetype. So I do really like them together. Yeah.
See, I feel like it took me a while to warm up to them together. Because at the beginning, I felt like Dalinar was so uncomfortable about it. And so it made me uncomfortable about it. Like I was getting like secondhand embarrassment for how he was like dealing with this situation. I'm like,
I was like, just give in.
Like, Dalinar, I love you so much, but you are being so awkward. Like, please. I have
like man blushing.
Yeah, I'm like, you're being so weird. And so it took me so long to warm up to it, honestly. I feel like I didn't even really like it until like this book, because of how awkward Dalinar was about it. And I'm just like, I can't not be awkward when I'm reading for your point of view and you're awkward.
I feel like maybe it's because I wasn't as invested in Dalinar that I didn't get the secondhand embarrassment so much, though I did think it was hilarious. I was like, Navani's a woman that knows what she wants. Listen, like,
I love Navani in
go for it, girl.
She's like, Dalinar, shut the door. Like,
just do it.
Stop.
Get over this. No, I think I also just found it like endearing that he had, because I feel like, again, he's just such a dynamic character, because I feel like, again, he was presented as this like strong, very militaristic character, like man's man, like rah, rah, rah. But then he had this piece of him that would get so uncomfortable if like the door was closed and he was in a room alone with Navani. Like I just really liked that offered some softness to his character, and that he was so in his head about it. I really liked that. I felt
he
like
was so in his head about it.
He was
like, dude,
so cute.
I do love him. Like I can't not love Dalinar. But
I do love him too. I worry for him in book 5. We should have a book 5 prediction one too.
We should do
maybe
it
that
right
could be like the Rhythm of War one. Like once there's no spoilers left, like we can spoil everything.
Yeah. We definitely should. I will say that reading through, I recognize so many more connections to the Cosmere than I did before. Like, I know this is like kind of jumping back towards the Radiance, but even when like Shallan's walking into the Ghostbloods for the first time, right? And they're talking about the things that are on the walls, and you're like, oh my gosh, I know this thing. I know this thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like that type of thing, I feel like you recognize so much more, because we talked about this in Edge Dancer, which I can spoil because it's past Edge Dancer, but I hadn't read Warbreaker when I first read those ones. And so the sword meant nothing to me.
That's right. Yes.
Which I
understand that
connection. I still thought it was
yeah.
interesting. I was like, oh, a black sword. This is intriguing, right? But this time through, even when I read Warbreaker after having read the Cosmere, I didn't put it together. Like, it just didn't really click.
Okay, yeah.
Because, like, I don't know. I was reading this one and I was like, I'm in this world now. And so I didn't really think of the connections, because I feel like in Warbreaker, you don't see the connections in that book, really, right? Like, you see them coming into this one from that one, but like in Warbreaker, it wasn't like the same like feeling. That. Does that make sense? Like, the vibe of it wasn't like, here are connections.
It was like a different world, yeah.
Yeah. So I didn't even really think about it, but on reread, I was like, oh,
I know.
It's a black talking sword.
Yes, I know, because I was thrown off by it, because it's like one of the most tangible Cosmere connections to that point. And so I was taken off guard by it, because normally the Cosmere connections are very much Easter eggs and a little bit esoteric and whatever. Whereas this is like a tangible, this is the same sword from Warbreaker.
Yeah, and there's only one.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. And I found the hair the first time, and I think it's in Words of Radiance as well, the first time that Shallan just changes her hair color.
And you're like,
and that's the only, I was like, oh my God, Warbreaker.
It's crazy the things you notice on reread, the connections, because like they're so subtle. Like even how blatant it seems like the sword was this read, it actually isn't that big. Like it's still relatively subtle. It's just not as subtle as some of the other ones.
Well, I feel like it's because I imagine, like, I don't know that he's I don't know for certain that he said this, but I think he's trying to make them where it's like, if you enjoy the Cosmere, you can enjoy everything. Like, I think he wants it so that you can enjoy each one in isolation.
Yeah.
You know, so he doesn't want
to read just the Stormlight Archive
without having read Warbreaker and still understand it. So I think that's why they generally are very subtle.
Yeah.
But I do think there's some like the secret projects. I feel like you have to have read other books to enjoy them. Like, I don't, but though a lot of people started with Tress of the Emerald Sea.
I don't know. I feel like Tress is really easy to enjoy on its own, but you wouldn't have the same impact. Like if you were reading it just as its own story, it's a really good story. I've had friends who only read Tress and they're like, this is amazing. I love it. But it's not the same as if you're like, Hoyd, what are you doing there? You know,
I feel like that, because that's the piece where I'm like, how can you enjoy it if you don't have that moment of
or the end where you're like
yeah. Oh god, it's so good.
Oh my gosh, like I just don't think it has the same impact.
I would agree. Yeah, you're right. So and I feel like I'm thinking of that impact, that I'm like, how can you still enjoy this without having that moment?
Right. But I think it honestly speaks to how good of an author he is that you can. Like you can love Tress, because I've heard people who are like, Tress is one of the best books that I've read this year, and I'm like, you've read nothing else by Brandon Sanderson, but it's still that good.
Yeah,
which is crazy because like for me, I love this. Don't get me wrong, Tress is like 5-star, absolutely love it.
Yeah,
but like, how can you not have that moment of you walk in and seeing like the Aeon? Is that how you say Aeon? Whatever.
I don't know.
At the end, and you're just like, oh, no way. And then Hoyd, and you're like, how did, right? Like, it doesn't mean the same, even though, like, apparently they still love it.
I know. That whole sequence, though, feels like it would just be, like, it would feel so random to me if you didn't understand it, But
I mean, I feel like a lot of books are kind of like that, where they have the big bad at the end, and the big bad has these powers, and then you defeat them in some way. So, like, I think it just fits the plot of what you would expect, and even if you don't completely understand the background of it,
it's still good. Have you read Sunlit Man?
I have not. That's the only one I haven't read yet.
I started today.
Did you?
I've not read it either, and I was like, frick, I need to read this.
I know, I need to read it too. It's gonna happen before Rhythm of War. That's what I heard. Okay.
Oh wow.
Maybe you should read Warbreaker.
Yeah, you'd enjoy Warbreaker.
I'm just gonna give you that lovely idea. You should definitely read Warbreaker.
You could do whatever you want, but you should definitely read Warbreaker.
Yeah, I mean, you can, but don't. No, you definitely should.
I always think it's fascinating the people that start with Stormlight.
I really would agree with you on that one, especially, okay, so I had someone ask me the other day, one of my patrons actually was like, hey, you're the person I know knows the most about Cosmere. Can I read Mistborn Era 2 before reading Stormlight? And so in my head, I'm like, yes.
Technically, yeah.
And I really think it comes down to where you want the reveals to happen, because I think that a lot of these reveals will have just as much impact if you read them in Stormlight as if you figure them out in Mistborn Era 2, right? Because there's one in particular that I'm obviously thinking about that I don't want to spoil if you haven't read Mistborn Era 2. But like, I think it would be just as like, wow, that's crazy reveal in Mistborn Era 2. And then you can kind of read the series as a series instead of being like, okay, I'll read the first 3 books and then I'll jump into Stormlight for 3 books and then I'll jump, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like the jumping between.
True. That's true. I guess I just felt like, I do feel like that wouldn't necessarily have as much. No, I would agree. I feel like you can start with Mistborn Era 2. It wouldn't be like necessarily what I recommend, but you absolutely could enjoy that. And I think it's just because so much of my enjoyment, like I know people dislike Era 2, but so much of my enjoyment in Era 2 came from the callbacks to Era 1. Like all of them like referencing those characters is what I.
Oh, like, no. I mean, reading Mistborn Era 1 and Mistborn Era 2 before reading Stormlight. I would never recommend reading Mistborn Era 2 first. I
thought you meant starting with Era 2. Okay.
I love how you're like, I guess so.
You're talking about not really a reveal if you haven't read Era 1. You won't even know who this person is.
No, I mean like going through all the Mistborns before reading Stormlight.
Oh yeah, I think that's totally fine. for sure. I think you can go the Mistborn route for sure, and then Stormlight. Yeah, I thought you meant like them starting first pass with Era 2. Okay.
No. Like, I mean, I guess you could, but
you could. Honestly, I think you could. It would just not be again. I feel to me it'd be like Tress, where you wouldn't have those big moments, but I could still see probably it being enjoyable. I think book 4 specifically would be confusing though.
You'd be so confused by 4.
Yeah.
Like, what is happening?
Yeah.
And so 4 is the one that really I'm talking about here, right?
Yeah. 4 is
the
where
other 3 is not as big a deal. But by 4, like if I were to say ideally, I would say read up to Rhythm of War and then read Lost Metal and then right. Like that's how I would say ideally. But I get that a lot of people don't like to jump in between series while they're reading it. They like to read the series together because they're invested in those characters and that world and stuff. And so I feel like, yeah, it'd be fine to do it that way. I just wouldn't recommend it. Like, honestly, I would recommend reading his books in publication order.
I would too, yeah.
Like,
I think that's how it evolved naturally.
Yeah.
I almost always recommend publication order.
Me too. And I know that it's hard though, because some people don't like to jump between. And in that case, then I try to come up with like the best way for the individual person when they've asked me. But yeah, like I just feel like it's the reveals will come differently to you. Like you'll have different emotional attachment to different reveals because they came to you first.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I would agree with that totally.
I have a bunch of other Cosmere books to start after Wind and Truth. Oh, you should sneak them in before. Yeah. I'm so sucked into Roshar and the goings on that I don't want to jump into another world. Okay. I do get that, but
yeah. But Sunlit Man, you can read and it's still like Roshar adjacent, like the characters from Stormlight. Yeah. So I would recommend Sunlit Man. Apparently you not have to. Apparently it's strongly recommended that you read Sunlit Man before Winds and Truth for people that have read it.
That makes sense. Mm-hmm. Actually, that's what I've been told too, is I I wasn't strongly encouraged. I was told I have to. So
yeah, you don't have to do anything, but that's basically the impression I'm getting as well. There's something in Sunlit Man that's really important.
Right. And so, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I would recommend reading Tress before too, because I feel like there's going to be a Hoid thing coming in.
I think so too, just based on the way that the narrative is in that one and Yumi, it feels like that's going to be important in some capacity.
I just feel like you learn about what Hoid is doing in the background more in the other books. And like in Yumi, yes, but I think more particularly in Tress, like what he's actually doing, what he is spending these away times on, and more about him and his abilities and his knowledge and stuff. I just feel like if he somehow becomes a huge part of book 5, like having that background on him would be helpful.
Yeah. And surely he will. Like, I feel like that's what the Stormlight or what the secret projects are like laying the foundation for. Right. Is my interpretation. So then I would agree. And Yumi just feels like window dressing. Like you don't have to do that one. Tress seems a bit meatier.
Right. And then I mean, honestly, I would say if you haven't read the Mistborns too, like that's I get that there's only like a month left. I get it. I get there's only a month left. So read the Stormlight Archive, focus, that's fine. But
I feel like it's Rhythm of War, Lost Metal, and Sunlit Man. I've heard of the 3 most important, and they're the end of series. So
exactly. It's like you have to get to the end of all the Mistborns to get Lost Metal, but there is so much in Lost Metal. Like when I started reading, I did not expect it to branch out that much.
No, me neither. Well, actually, I think I was a little bit disappointed in Lost Metal because I was seeing it online, people being like, it breaks open the Cosmere, like there's so many connections, and there definitely was, but I think because I was braced for like more, I was a little bit disappointed, but yeah, it definitely has a lot.
I do have Sunlit Man. I'm not averse to spoilers, so I know who Nomad is.
There you go.
Well, I'm averse to spoilers. Like,
you don't know who Nomad is?
I haven't read Sunlit Man.
Okay, someone must have spoiled it for me then because I knew who it was going into the book.
I don't think so. I might be
okay. I need you to text me as you read it.
Okay. It's probably honestly going to be next month because.
Why did I know who it was going into it? Well, I'm glad I didn't say. Oh my gosh.
I don't know.
I don't think it's on the back. No, there's no way because it's clearly it's now that I think about it, the fact that they've got a different name means it's clearly meant to be something you learn of.
Right.
Why did I know that? Huh.
I think you spent. this is going to sound crazy because I love the Cosmere so much, but I avoid Cosmere areas a bit unless I know they're talking about a specific book because they do give so many spoilers. And I am not quite caught up. I am so close. Like I have Sunlit Man and that's about it at this point, I think. But still, like I want to be completely like done before.
That's smart. I think I must have gotten it online from a spoiler there. But yeah, I need to reread Rhythm of War and then Sunlit Man's the only new content I have.
Yeah, I think Sunlit Man is the only new one for me. I don't know. I just feel like there's something so comfortable about Brandon Sanderson's writing and his prose. It's very like as comfortable to start reading one of his books, even if it has a different tone, right? Because I feel like Tress has a very different tone to Yumi, to Stormlight, but like all of them, it just feels like a very comfortable read. Like you're just like, okay.
Yes,
like,
I agree.
I'm here. I'm settled.
I agree. I feel like despite how complicated his books get, I find them very accessible because of how accessible the writing style is. And I was actually having this conversation with a friend of mine because I like recently started reading. I think you commented on my video. Oh my God, Gods of the Weirdwood.
Yes, I actually I just got the second book.
I'm obsessed. I also just bought the second
one.
I need to immediately go into. I was so invested in book one, but I read The Bone Ships and I didn't get super into it. But I am floored at how distinct the storytelling and tone and writing is. But did you read Tide Child trilogy?
I read the first one. I didn't read the whole thing.
But okay, so then can you like Gods of the Weirdwood and Bone Ships feel like two completely different writing styles?
I agree. I would not have guessed they were the same author.
Never. But I feel like, and I find that so impressive. But with Brandon Sanderson, I feel like he is one where you can always like smell him. You always know it's his book, which I find like I love in RJ Barker's case that they're so distinct. But something I agree. I think that's what makes Brandon Sanderson comforting is because no matter where you are in his stories, yes, they're unique. They're so imaginative. Like there's so much going on, but you can always tell it's him.
Yeah.
And I like that in that specific storytelling.
I agree, which is one of the reasons why I'm a little bit nervous that he has talked on multiple occasions about bringing in other writers.
I know I've heard
to write with him or to write like in his place on some of these things. And I'm like, no. I'm sorry, but no. Because when he brought in Jancy Patterson, this is nothing against her. I'm sure she's a phenomenal author, but those short stories, novellas, whatever, they felt different. Like they just didn't have the same 100%.
Agreed.
And they weren't, it's not that they were like, oh, they're so badly written. It's not that. It's just they didn't feel like Brandon Sanderson books. And I don't want him to do that to the Cosmere. Like I wasn't as attached to the Skyward universe, so I wasn't as mad about it. But I feel like if he did it to the Cosmere, I would be so sad. Me
too. Because it's not that he's the best writer in the world. Like I would say that his prose is probably like weak. Like people criticize his prose all the time. And I'm like, fair. Like they're not, he's not he's not prose. I love that about him. Totally. Like I love I've read a couple of books recently that are like very heavy metaphors and like they're so beautifully written. And I'm like, I don't get it.
I love both. Because like, I mean, have you read like Erin Morgenstern?
No, I've not because I worry I'm not going to like it because I don't like flowery writing.
She's like that. And she's one of my favorite authors. Like I love both of her books.
You guys should try.
But I also love Brandon Sanderson's writing.
Yes. And I feel like that is... So Jancy Patterson might be a better writer than him, but it's because he's not going to have that familiarity. I totally agree. I don't love that. And I get it. Like, I think he's got so much story to tell in this universe and he literally doesn't have time. And I do understand that, but I would rather just get it from him. Like, I don't need books. Like I was overwhelmed by the number of releases we got from him. Was that last year already?
Oh my gosh, it was, wasn't it?
Jeez, Louise. Okay, yeah. So last year I was overwhelmed with the number of releases. So like I am good with one a year. Like take your time, write the one book. Or two, maybe two, because you're really fast. But like
I think two. I think I'm good with two.
You're right. Two would be good. Two would be perfect. But like the 5 in a year was overwhelming. And so just write them yourself. Take your time. We're good.
No, I really don't want him to have someone else write in the Cosmere.
Me neither.
Like, I just think
I know, like other stories. I would agree with you. Like other stories, like Skyward for sure, because I think he's talked about Skyward Era too.
Yeah, and Jancy Patterson, I think, is almost exclusively writing that.
Okay, perfect. Love that for her. No problem.
I'm not going to read them.
No, me neither.
Okay. I don't want to be that person, but like I only read them to begin with because they were Brandon Sanderson.
I know, like maybe if I hear really great things, but I'll treat it as like a new author. You know?
Exactly.
Like,
I'm going to treat it like a different author.
Yeah.
Not like this is a book from my favorite author.
Yeah, it's not like an auto buy. Yes, I would agree.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it too. But I don't know. I feel like he does so well at, like, one of my favorite things about him and his writing is the Sanderlanche, which like it has its own name. It is that big of a thing, right? He's so good at, and this book, I'm sorry, Oathbringer, the Sanderlanche in this book was top tier. It was insane.
Yeah, it's you
can't put it down. You're just like sitting there unable to blink as like
you have to take it all in.
Yeah, it's insane. And I just don't know if anyone else could replicate that because he is like masterful at that.
I also think that it is really hard to write this long of book and do it well. And I think that is also something that I'm like, if it's another author, like you got to cut the page count, or like we'd have to do something. Like, I don't know that everyone has the capacity to write this. The only other author I've read, well, because like I think even like Ken Liu, who we were just speaking about, like that was meant to be one book, Veiled Throne and Speaking Bones. Nope, didn't need to be. Like, so that's an example of like, I don't think everyone has the capabilities to write an engaging story for 1,200 pages.
Right. And to do it multiple times. Because Wall of Storms, phenomenal. Like that was one of my favorite books I've ever read in my entire life. Like I don't think it could have been more perfect. But then, then Veiled Throne, I was like, what did I just read?
One book. So like if you think about Veiled, like Speaking Bones
is 1,000 books.
Amazing.
2,000 pages.
Yeah, no, not needed. The only other one of Warren, have you read Ryan Cahill? I can't remember.
I've read the first one and then the novella.
Okay. Those get significantly better with each one. But of War and Ruin, the third one is huge, and I really enjoyed it. He had the ability to keep you engaged for 1,200 pages.
Yeah. Well, and even like some other writer, like the Aragon series, that one turns out to be like 800 pages by the end. Totally invested the whole time. Absolutely loved it. And yeah, I just think that some authors can do it consistently and some just can't. And I know he's talked about having like co-writing with Dan Wells. And I have never read a Dan Wells book. But one of my friends, when we were at, he writes horror for the most part, but he's also written other things like dystopian and things. He's the one that they do the podcast together all the time. The Intentionally Blank one. And he's funny. He's fun. He's very entertaining, but his style seems so different. And one of my friends got one of his books when we were at the conference, not last year, but the year before. And so she was reading it and she's like, this is absolutely horrible. She's like, this is such a bad book. And she's not even as judgy as I am. Like, she's nicer about it. And it was great. Like, it started out with like a baby in the NICU or something. And it was kind of funny because she's like a neonatal nurse practitioner. Okay. And so she's like, this is all wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. Like, all of this is just so like absolutely no sense. And so I'm like, I don't want someone who's not going to like put in the time and effort to like research and really make these things like be good and accurate to like touch the Cosmere. Like, don't touch it.
No, make them write your other stuff, not this one. Yeah. Like, I get you have a lot of ideas. You're like a well of ideas. So make other people
like keep the Cosmere and let other people write the other stuff.
Yeah. I don't love the idea of that. I never even heard of him. I just Googled his books. I've not heard of any of them.
Yeah, me neither. I think it's because he writes horror, and I like horror books, but I don't like dig into a bunch of different horrors books in the genre.
The only horror I've heard that people consistently recommended to me that I might like is My Heart is a Chainsaw. So I do have that one. I have it like tentatively for October. Have you read that one?
I have read The Only Good Indians by that same author.
You like it?
I really enjoyed it. So he writes about Montana, which is where I'm from. And so I'm very familiar with like the area. I like went to Browning a lot. Went up there to go like basketball games and fishing and stuff like that. And so like I'm very familiar with the area, and I think a lot of that was like an interesting reason why I was a lot more invested in. But I really liked his writing style. I like the story. I haven't gotten into My Heart is a Chainsaw because I hear it's about like someone who's really obsessed with horror and slasher movies. And I actually dislike horror and slasher movies.
Me too.
So I don't know if I would have the same enjoyment of it if I don't like the thing that she's obsessed with. You know what I mean?
I know. I worry she's going to like make a lot of references that I'm just not going to get.
Exactly. So that's honestly why I haven't read it, because I actually did like The Only Good Indians, but
I know. I just feel like if I'm going to read it every year in October, I think I've had it for like 3 years now. And every year I'm like, if I'm going to read it, it's going to be October.
I really want to read The Last House on Needless Street?
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the top horror books on my list right now.
Last House on, yeah, I'm just like, I'm not super into horror, but
I know I tend to enjoy it when I read it, but it's not something that I really seek out that much.
I think sometimes just reading them sparingly like makes them a little bit easier to enjoy almost. Maybe I should just push it.
I guess I liked T. Kingfisher wrote a horror book I really enjoyed, but I can't remember the name right now. Oh, What Moves the Dead. I like that.
Aren't most of her books like kind of horror-y? Like
I think most of them are horror-y or horror adjacent.
Okay. But that one was like was like genuinely horror.
Yeah. I think that's probably one of the ones I've read that's the most horror of hers.
I'll try that one.
But yeah. And I did enjoy it. It's like a retelling of the fall of the House of Usher.
Oh, yes. I do remember when that one released. People talk about that.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, well, I think that's about all I have about Oathbringer, since we've kind of been like talking about all the different things. Do you have any other thoughts?
No, I think that's overall, because I feel like, yeah, most of my thoughts, I feel like Oathbringer and Rhythm of War are like smushed in my head. So now I can't say any more without spoiling.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that too, where I can't remember some of the, like, especially the political things or different things when they happen. Yeah, so I'm just like making sure that I don't go over. But I feel like next one will be a lot easier to like just talk about.
Yeah, agreed.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining. We will see you on the next one. Bye.